What's going on, everybody? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another fight breakdown. This Thursday, February 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. Teofimo Lopez is going to be defending his WBO light welterweight title against Jamaine Ortiz. Really like the fight. I like both of these fighters here. I think it's a really good matchup, and it has a pretty solid undercard. All right. I'm this fight is on a Thursday night, so don't forget. All right, Super Bowl weekend, so I'm sure that had a lot to do with the Thursday night card. I actually like Thursday night cards. I actually have no problems with them, But most people are probably not watching boxing on Thursday nights, but I like the card and I like the night that is on. I like this fight. Both of these fighters have a lot of similarities, all right? They both came up in the game and the amateurs around the same time. They both pretty much the same age. Jamaine Ortiz is 27 years old. Teofimo Lopez is 26. They both have one big common opponent, and that's Vasyl Lomachenko. They both have one loss. Jamaine Ortiz has a draw on his record. All right? Reach is the same. Height is the same. They're both 5'8". And they both fight similar, all right? When you look at them, they're both explosive. They're both fast. They both like to throw combinations, They both fight with their lead hand down, and they both have the same weaknesses, They lunge in, and they run into counters, all of that stuff. They both have, I think, the difference between them is this, I think T.O. on his best days, IQ is a little bit better, He's performed at a higher level better to me. And plus, the other part is the power. T.O. is just more powerful. He has a bigger punch. He's been fighting at 140 now a little longer. This is his fourth fight at 140. After he lost to George Kambosos, he moved up to 140. He's been there for the last three fights. Jamaine Ortiz, this is going to be his second fight at 140 after beating Antonio Moran in his last fight. I was about to say Antonio DeMarco. All right, so look, not going to be a long breakdown because there's so many similarities between the two. They do have Vasyl Lomachenko on their resume. T.O., in my opinion, probably his best performance. And you could go back and forth between that and the Josh Taylor fight, but I'm going to go with the Lomachenko fight. I still think to this day, he beat Loma more clearly than anybody else that beat Loma or has been in the ring with Loma. I just think he did the best, and some people may say it's because of the injury and all that, but I mean, based on what we've seen in the ring, I think T.O. did the best compared to Devin Haney or, whoever else has been in there with Loma. But Jamaine Ortiz did do well, and I think he had a closer fight than what the judges scored for him. I thought that was a very close fight with Lomachenko. And, he's young, he's fresh. Again, he has fast hands, and he likes to be first all the time. And sometimes that could be a problem. Some fights it could be a problem. I think sometimes even with the hand speed, he becomes pretty predictable and easy to time. We've seen that in the Joseph Adorno fight. If you haven't seen that fight, check that fight out. The fight is still on YouTube. I've talked about it in the past, doing breakdowns for Adorno and doing breakdowns for Jamaine Ortiz. So I've seen the fight. I've gone back to the fight a few times to do film study. And you can see in that fight there, him getting caught with some good shots, getting hurt a few times, getting knocked down in that fight. Jamaine Ortiz, quick hands again, likes to throw combinations, but lunging in is the problem. He just steps in, and it's like he's not. At points, he kind of falls asleep on the wheel, and he forgets about what can be thrown back at him when he's putting his punches together. So I think that's one of his major issues. Also, being such a quick fighter and throwing so many punches, kind of high volume, He kind of burnt out in the later half. I thought he was winning pretty clear in the earlier rounds against Loma. But again, Loma has picked up the pace in the later half of the fight and was able to pick up more rounds in that fight, and where he pulled off the win against Jamaine Ortiz, who slowed down. All right. You can say the same about Teofimo. Pretty explosive combination puncher. Likes to lead. Likes to come first. Takes a different approach defensively. Likes to use the backhand a lot for his defense and catching and blocking shots with his backhand. Again, low lead hand, very, very low lead hand. Throws his jab from the waist. And good counter puncher. Very explosive. I think his punch selection is a little bit better than Jamaine Ortiz. I just think some of his punches is just a little bit more effective as well because he's more powerful. Just on the IQ level, I just think he's slightly better, and he's fought better, more consistently through his career. When you look at Ortiz, you got Moran, you got Lomachenko, obviously, you got Adorno, you got Jamel Herring, former champion. But Ortiz, you have Taylor, you have Gambosos, you have Nakatani, Vasil Lomachenko. I just think he has a little bit more on his resume, all right, and he's performed better at a higher level. But when it comes to Teofimo Lopez, and this is what my main point in this video is, it really depends on him mentally. Because when I look at him and when I analyze him and his career, right? When I look at him overall, I really think it's not really about preparation. There's somebody, Richard Comey, too. That's who I also was trying to think of the name real quick. I had to go to BoxRec. Richard Comey was another good opponent that he knocked out quickly. Teofimo Lopez's biggest issue to me is I think he tends to overlook some of his opponents. The guys that he's expected to beat, the guys that he goes into the fights not really respecting his power. Okay, when he's been knocked down, who was it by? George Kambosos, Sandor Martin. Guys that he thought that his power and his aggression was going to be too much for these fighters. And it caused him to run into issues. And I think that is the biggest problem in Teofimo Lopez and his fights. He almost still beat George. It was still a very, very close fight. I think it went down to the very last round. The very last round is what gave George the win for me. All right, I think any other way would have been a draw. Sandor Martin, I went to that fight here in New York, and a very, very close fight. A fight that he got knocked down, Again, Teofimo Lopez, I think, overlooks some of his opponents. And you can even throw Nakatani in there. I think some of these guys that he's fought, when it came to Josh Taylor, when it came to Vasil Lomachenko, he was so sharp, and he didn't have to primarily focus on always being first. He was focused. Made very few mistakes in those fights, or less mistakes in those fights. And I think what makes this fight dangerous for him is you got to wonder if he's overlooking Jamaine Ortiz. They do have the common opponent in Vasil Lomachenko. Obviously, Teal did much better. But, Jamaine Ortiz didn't look great. And the Adorno fight, he kept getting hurt. The Antonio Moran fight, he looked okay, but he didn't look all that great. I think what we saw in that Jamel Herring fight, we haven't really seen from Jamaine Ortiz, And you got to wonder, Teofimo Lopez is doing all these interviews. He's talking about everybody else but his opponent. The few interviews that I've seen, I see TL talking about everyone else. And you know what? That could be a thing to help push and build up the fight. Once you start throwing names around, you start talking about Pitbull and Rolly, you start talking about Terrence Crawford and all of these other fighters, Ryan, Devin Haney, sometimes it's based on the questions that are asked. But, certain fighters know how to answer questions and they say, they're focused on this or they focused on this fighter and stuff like that. It seems like, Ortiz, I'm sorry, it seems like Teofimo could be a little distracted. He could be focused. He could be looking past Jamaine Ortiz. And he could be underestimating him just because he's now on a level as Josh Taylor and he's now on a level as Vasyl Lomachenko. You never really know. You have to wonder. If that's the case, and if he thinks he's going to go in there and run through Jamaine Ortiz, I even seen a video earlier today where he was like eating fast food, and again, I don't know if that's just to sell the fight, obviously he's probably making weight very easily, but still, like, you want to be at your best. And if he can go into a fight like this with the same mentality that he had going into the Josh Taylor fight or the Vasyl Lomachenko fight, where he's completely focused, then I think he wouldn't struggle that much in this fight. And he still might not struggle that much in this fight. But I think if the fight, I am picking Teofimo Lopez to win. How? I don't know. I can't predict that. I think he has the ability to hurt Jamaine. But Jamaine has pretty good survival tactics. We seen that in the Lomachenko fight. He can survive. And I think that is from the experience he had with facing Joseph Adorno. I think he can pull it out. But I think this is a fight that Teo could stop him. Teo's a puncher, man. And he's probably the biggest puncher that Jamaine Ortiz has faced by far. So where you want to go with knockout, decision, I can see the knockout. But I don't trust Teo as far as not his ability. I don't trust him as far as him, whether or not he's overlooking his opponent. I think that's his biggest weakness. It's not even his ability. It's mental. So, overall, I think Teo wins. But how he performs, he can either struggle in this fight or he can either dominate and even possibly get a knockout here. It really depends on him. A game, Teofimo Lopez beats Jamaine Ortiz, and even hurts him, or if not, stop him. Teofimo Lopez is looking past Jamaine Ortiz, might thinking, this is an easier fight. This is a step down. I've already fought the elite. He can struggle a little bit to a decision, But either way, he wins the fight. I think he does everything that Jamaine does, but better. And this is why I have to go with him no matter what. I think Jamaine Ortiz and both Teo, as much as they like to be first, I think they need to take an approach on working behind the counter and using that check left hook and catching them with shots while they're lunging it. They're both going to do it. It's just unavoidable. So I think that's the way to go. I think that's where both fighters will shine the most, is by catching these guys lunging in, catching the other fighter lunging in. I think that's where to go. You've seen it with Teo, with Sandor Martin. You've seen it with Adorno and Jamaine Ortiz and Adorno. All right, so I think these guys should work behind the counter, use that check, look, left hook. That'll be the shot. That's going to be the shot to drop one or the other, you know. Just not trying to work in combinations. There's going to be times, though, there are going to be some really good exchanges between them both because they're both really, really fast. But I just think TL on his A game, defense is a little bit tighter, and he's going to get the better of some of those exchanges. Plus, he has the bigger pop. All right. So it should be a good fight, man. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to be here to cover the fight with you guys. You got some good undercard fight. Keyshawn Davis is going to be fighting Jose Pedraza. You got Abdullah Mason as well. That's going to be on the undercard. Young prospect. Everybody's looking forward to him. So I can't wait to see you guys on Thursday for the fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What's your picks? And subscribe to the channel. Smash the like button as well. All right. I'll see you guys Thursday. Peace.